Alright guys, this is Jason with the Primal Outdoors channel, and ever since I got the van converted to four-wheel drive, I have been working tirelessly to try to improve the overall performance of how the van rides. I've been putting a lot of work into the front end of the van, trying to make it ride a little bit better, but quite honestly, I have neglected the rear end. But we're here in Alcan Springs, here in Grand Junction, Colorado. I've got Lou with Alcan. He's going to help me address some of my issues. How's it going, Lou?
Good. Nice to see you.
So we're going to do new leaf springs on the vans today. Can you explain a little bit about what you do here and how the leaf springs are made?
Well, what we do here is we can design any kind of lift, address weight capacity issues, and make the vans ride a lot nicer. And I mean, not only vans, but any vehicle out there. We use a multi-leaf to use thinner material and more leaves. And what that does is that lowers the spring rates and gets the vehicle to ride like it should, even with the extra weight and the lift.
That's great. So you just gave me a little walk through the shop there, kind of explained how things are made. Can you just quickly run through a little bit of that for my viewers and let them see a little bit of the process of what you go through to make your springs?
Yeah, so all of our steel is built here in America. The same mill has built my steel for over 40 years, and it all comes back from Chicago. We have it shipped in here in 22-foot sticks. It's 5160 spring steel. We cut the steel to length, whichever design I design the spring to. After the springs are cut, the holes are punched, the ends are diamonded, and then it's ready to go into the ovens at that point. The main leaves, we roll all the eyes to fit the bushings, whether it be a Prothane bushing or a OEM style RB bushing. My main oven, it'll run at 1750 degrees. And what that does is that'll heat that leaf up to its optimum temperature. And then we pull that leaf out one at a time. It goes through the straightening machine onto the arching machine, where each leaf is then arched to the specific arch of the spring needed for whatever the lift may encounter. After that, it's put into the quenching oil. Once it's in that quenching oil, then that leaf turns hard and brittle like a knife. After the spring is cooled, it goes into the tempering oven. The tempering oven actually changes the molecular structure in the steel, brings it back into the spring. After that, the springs are final arch, so every leaf lays perfect with the next one. So there's no gaps or anything like that in between the leaves. Painstakingly by hand process. I mean, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort to actually produce a quality spring. Once the springs are final arched and perfect, then they're assembled, putting all the inserts in between the leaves for the anti-friction pads, bolt keepers, and assembled together and then painted. After that, they'll dry for a day, and then after that they're going to be ready to ship. Great.
So you mentioned that it was really important to keep the springs together and that they laid flat. What's an issue if they weren't?
So if a spring, let's just say if a spring isn't laying flat together like this and it has a little bit of gap. Imagine going over a bump and that leaf would start to slap like that. So you want each leaf to lay perfect with the next, so they all work in concert.
Perfect. Well, I'm excited. Like I said, I've been working really hard to try to get this van riding real nice down the road. Not only nice down pavement, but I also want to handle well off-road, so I'm really excited to see how these things work out for me.
Oh, I think you're gonna be very impressed.
Alright, so Tyler with Alcan Spring. We're going to be replacing Jason's springs today on his E350. A couple things I've noticed on a lot of stuff that's built like this is, number one, the lift block. Lift blocks just create axle wrap. They don't give you any extra articulation. They're literally just lift blocks. It lifts you, that's it. So we're going to replace that lift block with a custom lift spring that we built. Also, Jason was telling me that down in Oregon he had to get an add-a-leaf added in for all the weight. That's why we get specific weights on vehicles like this, so we can build that spring to the weight of the vehicle. We're going to put one of our U-bolt plates on with a bump stop pad so he can still get his bump stop to hit, because without that block, that spring's going to be down here now, so it's going to be farther down. We'll have to look into longer bump stops as well for him. But other than that, this is just going to be a direct bolt in. It's going to be take this one off, put mine in, put it right back on, done deal.
Alright folks, so it'd be easy for me to say the new Springs ride much nicer, but I think a side-by-side comparison will paint a clearer picture. I wasn't able to film these in the same location, but both are shot on dirt tracks with dips and some protruding rocks. A couple things to notice is the Alcan Springs appear just to move a bit more fluidly. The old springs on the block have less travel and are bottoming out against the overloads. And the last thing I notice is if you watch the leaves on the old springs, they gap open every once in a while in the downward movement. I don't see that on the Alcan Springs, even when zoomed in.
All right, well, we just got done getting everything together. It looked like the installation went pretty straightforward. I just got an opportunity to try the van out down a couple of dirt roads, and man, what a difference. Going into this, my biggest concern was axle wrap because of the block that was there, and that was my biggest thing. I honestly didn't really think that I would notice much of a difference as far as ride quality, but man, after that ride, it was just so much more plush. I could just tell that when I even like went out of my way to hit some potholes and, you know, really push it, and it just soaked it up so much smoother, and it wasn't nearly as rigid as it was before.
Exactly, and that all just is accompanied by the multi-leaf progressive pack, where we use the thinner material, like was mentioned before, and more leaves. That way your spring rates go down, you get a better ride.
So that kind of brings me to another question. So if I was a guy that just bought a new truck, even a brand spanking new one, would I see any benefit of replacing the stock spring packs?
Oh, for sure. For a guy that is gonna have an overlanding rig and adding weight to the vehicle, using a spring pack from Alcan Spring is definitely going to be able to support the weight and give them a better ride and provide the lift that they want. I mean, you don't want to use a block underneath your spring. And that's what you get from any of the Fabtechs or BDS or Icons or whoever you're going to use, is they're going to send you a block for that rear leaf. That rear block is like you're trying to stack on top of a house of cards, basically.
Right.
And that's going to create that axle to be able to create axle wrap, and you know, and it's going to be unstable.
Right. So if I was a guy that was starting to build the truck, that I was thinking that I was going to go overlanding, and I knew I was going to put some kind of build into it, whether it even be a van or a pickup truck with a camper or whatever, what would it be ideal for me to kind of get it built and then get an exact weight to get the best thing to build the best spring?
I mean, it always is best to, once the vehicle is built out the way you want it and you have the tools and gear into the truck that you're going to have normally, and to get a scale weight. Even a corner weight is even better, because once in a while you do have a side that's heavier than the other side. If you've got a generator and a water tank and a propane tank and everything is kind of maybe on one side a little bit, you know, we can accommodate that one side and bring that one side weight capacity up versus the other side, so you're not sitting
sitting kidding on it.
That is always the best to do, is to get it built, get a weight, but not necessary. Any manufacturer of campers or, you know, your aftermarket bumpers or anything like that will come with a weight. You'll kind of know what weight we're going to be adding to that build. And we can estimate off of that, add for tools and gear and clothes and whatever else you're going to be packing, and we can build it that way too. But ideally, have it built that way.
So let's say that I built a truck and it's squatting a little bit. Am I going to notice a difference whether I go with a new spring pack or just throw some airbags underneath it to accommodate that extra weight?
So a lot of people do that, and the unfortunate problem with that is an airbag isn't really meant to be used every day. You don't want to rely on that airbag, because if you get off overlanding and you're in the backcountry and airbag fails, where's that going to leave you? You know, I keep this airbag here on my shelf just to show people, you know, that's what happens to an airbag. If it does puncture, if an airline breaks, if it's cold and the airline freezes, there's a lot of things that can happen, and then you're up a creek.
Right. So the ideal is that you get the vehicle to, you get the leaf springs made so that the vehicle sits with this typical amount of weight right first. Then you could, if you wanted to, use an airbag to assist you if you're adding short-term extra weight.
Sure, sure. I mean, if you're going to be pulling a trailer, or you've got, let's just say you put a motorcycle on the back, you know, and we don't account for that weight once in a while, you know, that's when an airbag is good. Or a Timbren, you know, and a Timbren will do the same thing, but there's no moving parts.
All right, well, thanks a lot, Lou. I mean, like I said, it really did make a huge difference so far. I'm really looking forward to getting the van back out into some of my backcountry and getting on some overlanding trips. And I'm really sure that my gear and Daisy are going to appreciate the more smush ride in the back. So thanks for getting it done so quickly.
You bet.
And yeah, if you guys are interested in maybe looking at a set of springs from Alcan, check out their website below. If you found this video to be somewhat useful, please do give it a like. If you have any comments or questions, leave those also down below, and we'll catch you guys again outside.